Hello, this is Minerva Delgado, and welcome to our third episode of the Voices to End Hunger podcast, Against the Odds, Treating Severe Child Malnutrition. The world is in the midst of the worst food crisis in decades, with 750 million people facing food insecurity, severe hunger, and even famine conditions impacting places across the globe. Nobody is more seriously impacted than children during their early formative years. We are bringing you something a bit different today. Alliance to End Hunger President Eric Mitchell guest hosts a discussion with leaders from two Alliance to End Hunger member organizations facing the issue head-on. The group will discuss the state of child malnutrition, the proven effectiveness of ready-to-use therapeutic foods, or RUTF, and how the current complex environment in the world is affecting the organization's work. Without further ado, here's today's podcast.
I'd like to begin with a sobering statistic. According to the World Health Organization, nearly half of all deaths among children under the age of 5 are linked to undernutrition. And with growing funding shortfalls for life-saving treatments like ready-to-use therapeutic food, UNICEF now warns that nearly 2 million children are at risk of dying from wasting. Now, the good news is that this crisis is entirely preventable. Several organizations around the world are working to provide emergency treatment to help save the lives of these children. It's because of this work we have effective, proven, and cost-efficient solutions in hand. The real challenge lies in scaling them to reach every child in need. That's why I'm especially pleased to welcome two leaders who are driving these solutions forward. Joining us today are Navyn Salem, CEO of Edesia Nutrition, and Chris Greene, CEO of Meds and Foods for Kids, both members of the Alliance to End Hunger. Welcome, Navyn and Chris.
Thanks for having us, Eric.
Before we get started, I just want you guys to just tell us a little bit about your stories. Like, what brought you to this work, and specifically the work that your organizations are doing? Just tell us a little bit more about what brought you here.
So I'll start. Thanks, Eric. So Edesia started actually 18 years ago. And for me, this has been a very personal journey in that my father and the last 3 generations are from Tanzania. And at the time, I also had 4 daughters who were under the age of 5. So this is not only part of the region geographically that we work in, but also the target population that we serve on a daily basis. I also enjoy solving problems through business because I see that as one of the biggest ways to have impact at scale. So it's kind of all of those ideas together that got me to founding Edesia. The American factory was set up by request of the U.S. government, who said we need a nonprofit food aid manufacturing company based in the United States in order to take advantage of some of the funding that's available and not available to local producers. And so that's pretty much how Edesia got started and been operating for 16 years here in Rhode Island.
Thank you, Navyn. Chris, tell us a little bit about Meds Foods for Kids and the work that you all are doing.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. We've been operating in Haiti for a little over 20 years now, and our organization was originally founded by a pediatrician, Dr. Patricia Wolf, who had just gone to Haiti on a medical mission trip and saw just the immense need and the disparities that exist just between our life here in the U.S. and Haiti, which is a 2-hour plane ride, right, from the coast of Florida. And she just really felt like something had to be done, and so just started raising awareness, and slowly but surely we grew over the years until now we have our food manufacturing plant based in Haiti, where we produce RUTF and other products and distribute them all throughout Haiti and sometimes export them as well. And I came to MFK I had gone down to Haiti to visit one of my sisters who was there for a period of time, and similar, I had my whole life until that point had been just focused on business, and went to Haiti and thought, this is crazy that other people who are no different than me just and are so close to where I am living have so few opportunities, and wanted to figure out how I could do something about it. And I ended up moving to Haiti and working with Meds and Food for Kids.
Wow. So I could tell just from both of your experiences that this is a life passion for both of you. And I did touch a little bit around the state of play as it relates to the state of child malnutrition around the world. But I'd love for y'all to just elaborate a little bit more on that, particularly as it relates to severe stunting and wasting. If you kind of like explain to our audience what that entails, but also, what are some of the driving factors behind it?
Natural disasters and conflicts are the main drivers of severe acute malnutrition. And we've dealing with that, plus in the current day the many interruptions within the supply chain that are happening right now that are going to contribute to that, and we don't even really understand the scale of that ripple effect of what is going to happen. It will take a number of more weeks and months to really see the impact, but I would say that that's a new contributing factor to the state of severe acute malnutrition, which is really sad to see because we have all of the tools, we have all of the teams. They all exist right now to solve this problem. And there are so many problems in the world that we can't solve, and malnutrition is just not one of them. And so when you add these interruptions triggered by the recent developments at USAID, plus the conflicts and natural disasters, you're really putting a huge strain on the entire world. And the children are always the ones who suffer the most from these types of decisions or lack of decision making that's happening right now.
And I know both your organizations are very unique. And we talked a little bit about um, ready-to-use therapeutic foods, and I'll go into, I'll ask some questions specifically around that shortly. But, Navyn, just tell the audience, like, how many countries does Edesia serve today?
So Edesia has shipped to 65 countries over our many years. In one year, it might look like 25 to 30 in any given year. That's mostly in sub-Saharan Africa, Middle East, and a smaller amount to Latin America.
And you touched on some of the challenges we're seeing right now as it relates to funding. But, typically what you've also seen is like the impacts that conflicts have had, like serving as a root cause of malnutrition, as well as, the remnants of the pandemic and as well as climate. Would you say like some of those are some of those driving factors of acute malnutrition?
Absolutely. And when you've missed a child, you can't often get that opportunity back. We're trying very hard to reach children at the earliest age possibly, preferably under the age of 2. We're delivering these vitamins and minerals to help develop the brain. And this is critical for children to have for the rest of their lives so that they are able to learn and be productive members of their society. And while we're also making a life saving food and we want to save lives, many times, what I've seen is in classrooms, you can see which students have been missed. And this is a really hard thing to witness because there's nothing you can do for that child if they are 6 years old. Nothing. The body is completely formed, the brain is formed, and there's no intervention. And so that's why any of these interruptions are really devastating to a whole nother generation of children.
And Chris, Meds Foods for Kids primarily serves in Haiti. Do you want to talk a little bit more about the work you're doing there and how the challenges, both political challenges and conflicts that you're seeing specifically as it relates to Haiti, is impacting your ability to deliver life-saving food?
Yeah, Eric, taking a quick second and looking at that global context and then driving in towards Haiti, where it kills me that right now I think the number is close to 50 million children are suffering from wasting. And that really means they're in a place where they're in acute and kind of life-threatening situation. But then on top of that, we have probably, like Navyn was saying, we have almost 150 million kids globally that have been stunted. And like Navyn mentioned, that means it's permanent. They have been affected in such a way that is irreversible, and that is heartbreaking. Um, we see all the global challenges that you guys mentioned in Haiti. We see the food scarcity, the conflict, the climate change, poverty. And then on top of it, we face problems like political instability, fuel shortages, the gangs controlling major roads, preventing whether it be food or treatments from getting to where they need to be in the country. We see challenges like inflation skyrocketing, which has made food nearly impossible for some people to afford. So it's a very difficult moment, and and I think especially in today's challenges that we're seeing with funding, there's another impact that we see that's not often discussed about, but it's the impacts of how sometimes we structure our foreign aid, and that unintentionally it can undermine local systems. And so right now we're seeing some of this where when we have a place like Haiti, who in many ways has become dependent on foreign food aid, and then that aid is pulled back, there are not the systems in place, there's not resiliency to bounce back as quickly. And it just means that the poorest of the poor or the most vulnerable are impacted all the more.
The organizations that you lead are unique in a way that you are producing a very specific type of supplement, often called ready-to-use therapeutic foods, or what we will say RUTF for the sake of the show. Can you talk a little bit more about what is RUTF, what makes it very unique, and then maybe we can dive into a little bit of how it's produced. I know both your organizations produce this in your factories. Navyn, I had the opportunity to visit Edesia in Rhode Island and see your massive facility. But just talk a little bit more about what are these products, and from your perspective, particularly Navyn, how is that procured and produced?
Yeah, so we have a fun name for our UTF. We call it Plumpy Nut. And what's special about that is that it doesn't need to be mixed with water or refrigerated. And these are two things that are very challenging to have in the global south where we are doing the work. The other really important part about it, and as a mom, I find this to be very important, is that children are able to be treated mostly in their own homes. So I met with a family in Mali not too long ago, and this mother had two sets of twins, two 3-year-olds and two 9-month-olds. I have one set of twins. I don't
Yeah.
even know how I would get to the hospital. Imagine I don't have a stroller, I don't have a car, nothing, and I need to get 10 miles to have these services. And so the fact that we are able to have a solution there that makes life easier on mothers and families is really an important part of the magic of this, and really getting it to those last mile, very difficult to reach environments where you see very high rates of severe acute malnutrition. So, that's kind of what made this product so revolutionary, and also saves money in terms of not having to have people stay in hospital settings and use up those resources. If children do have complications, then they need to be inpatient, but we're hoping that the majority are able to be treated at home.
Great, Chris.
Yeah, I think Navin really said it perfectly. I mean, it really is a miracle product. The fact that it can be sent anywhere, that it doesn't have to have clean water, that the impact is so quick. I mean, I think it's typically between 6 to 8 weeks that we see significant
Wow.
turnaround within a child receiving treatment. So it really is a miracle product.
You can't even recognize a child that's come in on the first day, and then 8 weeks later, what they look like, how they behave, their responsiveness, like everything about them has changed over that roughly 2-month period of time. This is something you cannot get tired of seeing, and it's such a tangible, measurable impact and return on that very small investment, it's unbelievable to witness firsthand, to see how effective this solution is.
And you're not only producing a therapeutic uh, packet that's just for the young child, but you're also providing supplemental nutrition for the moms as well. Talk, some of those other products that I know Edesia that you have produced that helps along the different stages of of growth and development to really bring that child from the brink of death to the point where they're actually able to eat more solid foods and be able to have a more sustainability, right?
I think one of the things that I'm going to say, which doesn't make any sense, which is I actually don't want to make RUTF anymore because saving lives is honestly a very bad approach. And imagine that I take my child to the pediatrician. And when I get there, they look at her and she has a fever and she has a cough and she's not looking so well. And they tell me, come back when she's just about to die, when her organs are shutting down, when her skin is peeling off her body, when she's unable to cry because she doesn't have any energy left in her other than her heart is beating. No person in the United States would tolerate a doctor telling them that that's how this treatment is going to go forward. What we need to do is prevention, early prevention. And this is part of the 1,000 days of life from conception to age 2. So
Hmm.
this can involve prenatal vitamins. It can include, we have a product called Plumpy Mum and Enough Mum that are other ways to get calories and vitamins and minerals that pregnant mothers need. Promotion of exclusive breastfeeding, and then a preventative product that we make called NutriButter or SQLNS, if you prefer acronyms, um, which is delivering all of that nutrition that they need right away from 6 months of age to 12 months of age at a minimum. And so we really want to move towards this model of prevention because it's more cost effective, it's better for families, it's better for children, it's less of a stress on the system, and it's just the right thing to do. So prevention isn't quite as sexy as saving lives, but it is not what we would tolerate as parents, and we shouldn't let this be tolerated anywhere else in the world because children deserve better.
Well said. Well said. Um, I want to talk a little bit about how it's produced. I know the primary ingredient that we all know of for particularly for our ETF is our peanuts, but I know there's so much other things that go into this paste. And I wish we were on video so I could show it to you. And I've tasted it. It tastes like Reese's. It tastes like a Reese's peanut butter cup to me. So it's really really good. But tell us a little bit more about what all is needed to create this paste. But then also, Navyn, from your perspective, I think it would be curious for the audience to understand where this is coming from, like in particularly in the U.S., to help really pull this together.
Yeah, so in our factory here in Rhode Island, we are required to have 100% commodities purchased from the United States. So we purchase from 25 different states across the country. And an example would be our peanuts that come from Georgia, North Carolina, Texas, and Virginia. And this is part of a really very America First supply chain where we have American farmers that move to American commodities groups, which then go to American manufacturers and then shippers, trucks, etc., and then implementers on the ground. But really, what's important is Chris and I are part of this network called the Plumpy Field Network.
Hmm.
And so there's a countries that are doing local production, which are super important to the ecosystem to be balanced with an international supplier. So that's what I would be labeled as.
Hmm.
The importance of that is they're closer to the need. There's less waste on shipping. And I can let Chris speak to all of this, but I just want to say, like, we are part of this network, and it's super important for us to have both that contribute into this system because we all have different challenges and different pros and cons. And we need all of us to work together in the American supply chain and in the global supply chain in order to deliver what's best for children.
And that's a perfect segue, Chris, because I want you to talk a little bit about the local production of what MFK has been able to do in Haiti, and how you've been able to see an economic impact, in the region where you're producing RUTF.
Yeah, it's producing RUTF is no small feat in and of itself. It's a very technical product, requires very high standards, both in your production environments as well as in your raw material procurement. So you can imagine for us, it's producing in Haiti can be a real challenge. Not only are we managing kind of the normal challenges that U.S. or European producers have, but we're also trying to manage things like, we procure peanuts locally. So we're managing the quality of those peanuts. Are they aflatoxin free or meet the standards? How do we help farmers address their training gaps or education gaps? How do we handle seasonal volatility of what's available? And so we really take a combined approach in that. We buy as many raw materials in Haiti as we can, and then we also procure locally, predominantly from the U.S., but also from some other South American countries. And our strategy really is how do you continue to support that local, the local products? How do you help procure more locally? And it's a real challenge. I think currently we probably can purchase between 20 to 25% of our peanuts locally. And that is often due to climate-related issues, which then affect quality and availability. We're trying to work with other farmers to kind of build capacity of what other raw materials can be sourced locally. So that's an ongoing effort. But really our decision for that, sometimes people ask us, why don't we just import everything? Because in many ways it's simpler, it's less stressful. And we really take the approach, Eric, of it being kind of a development strategy. So last year we trained hundreds of farmers. We had over 50% of those farmers were women that graduated from our programs. And that's very intentional because we know that like Navyn said, if the goal should be prevention, the goal shouldn't be treatment. If we want to move towards prevention when you're a local producer like MFK, then you've really got to start looking at this bigger picture and say, how can we structure our activities in order to help strengthen local economies, in order to strengthen the local food sector, to help make sure that children are being fed because their parents have jobs or because that food is actually availably local and affordable. And so that is a never-ending challenge for us in the environment we're in, but we really believe that in the goal of trying to end malnutrition, that a big part of that is developing those local structures.
So Edesia and MFK, you guys, both organizations are part of the alliance, and I know you do work separately, but I know there's also times where you collaborate together. Can you give an example of some of the work you've been able to do together in this larger issue of addressing malnutrition?
So one of the projects that I'm most proud of is a collaboration between Edesia and MFK. And the government of Haiti came to us to ask if there was a product that we could make that would be best for school-age children who are coming to school without breakfast, without lunch, and trying to learn in the classroom with no calories in their system. And so we had this challenge before us. And so between our on the ground in Haiti and the researchers that were based in Haiti and funding from USDA and the R&D departments of Edesia, we came up with a product called Vita Mamba, which was trialed and really looking to deal with anemia that most school-age children are dealing with. And the intention of this was for it to be long-term produced in Haiti. And so it was a amazing use of all of our talents and needs to come together to create a product that could be produced in Haiti for Haitians for the long term.
Yeah, now it's distributed in schools all across the country, whether it be the schools with the fewest resources or lots of resources. It's purchased by World Food Program and used in their school feeding programs. So it has been a huge success, and I think this is a great example of what you can do when you have great collaboration.
I want to talk about challenges a little bit. Both organizations are seeing challenges from different lenses and perspectives. Uh, Obviously, Chris, because you're working primarily in Haiti, you're seeing the instability in the country as it relates to the gang violence. So I want you to touch on like some of the things that you've been able to do. You have a very unique story around how you are able to operate in the country.
Yeah, sure. Um, it's there are some times where I think, goodness, trying to get product that you've produced in a country around in that same country shouldn't be that hard. We're not facing some of the international logistical challenges when you're crossing an ocean. But Eric, it feels like some days that we may not be crossing an ocean, but we're having to walk through fire.
Wow.
Um, it is, I think Haiti, it's probably fair to say that Haiti has got to be one of the most complex logistical environments in the world right now. Where we're situated anywhere from 100 to really less than 200 miles from any of the hardest hit areas in Haiti. And yet sometimes that 100 to 200 miles takes days to be able to get there. I mean, we are facing things like roads crumbling, the bridges collapsing, fuel can be scarce. You have armed groups that are controlling the roads and setting up checkpoints kind of like out of the blue. And so our team has had to become very adept at pivoting and pivoting quickly. And a great story for that I can think of is we partner very closely with UNICEF and WFP, and there a lot of the organizations in Haiti are in Port-au-Prince, which unfortunately is where the worst gang activity is taking place. And so sometimes it makes it very hard to get treatments and get supplies out of the capital and to where they need to go. And so there's an island off the coast of Haiti that's, as the crow flies, it's fairly close to the capital called La Gonave, and it was totally blocked off by gangs. And where MFK is, we're in the northeast part of the country, so we're quite a ways from this. But in our conversations with UNICEF, they made us aware of the challenges, and so our team immediately put together a plan where we were able to ship both treatments and other critical humanitarian supplies to a small local port in the north of the country. We put it on a barge, we shipped it down the waterways, we landed it, we got it put on local trucks that were on the island and distributed to everywhere it needed to go. We have countless stories like this where we've had times to get treatments in and out of the capital area where our truck is paused on the side of the road. And we're talking with someone, our driver is talking with someone in a local community that's maybe 15 miles away. And they're telling us the gangs are out, don't come right now. And we stay on that close contact, and then maybe 30 minutes later or an hour later, they'll call us and say, look, the gangs are gone, send your trucks now. And so
Wow.
it is amazing what we can do with when you integrate into communities. Because I'll say one of the things that we've really realized over the last couple of years is that when things are centralized, they're very fragile. Being integrated into those communities has made all the difference for us, because sometimes it's, the cause that you're trying to represent or the treatments you're trying to get out, the organizations you're working with, those aren't the things that open the doors. It's relationships.
Navyn, let's talk about your situation. I know you've gotten a lot of attention over the past few weeks. Can you talk a little bit about what is going on and what have you been able to do to pivot, in Chris's words, to still be able to do the critical work?
Yeah, so Chris has to deal with gangs in Haiti. Mine is USAID, strangely, and the dismantling of that's happened since January 29th. So we've gone through a series of stop work orders, contracts, cancellations, reversals, rescissions, all of the drama that you could invent, like many, many others. We did survive so far. So while 83% of contracts were canceled, we were part of the 17 that was not canceled. However, as I mentioned before, we're part of the supply chain, and every single one of them has to be turned on. So you cannot be the only one who has turned on contracts and all of a sudden it works. That's not. So right now, this week's challenge is okay, the US taxpayer decided, paid for a product that's going to Somalia and Sudan. But now you need a transport contract that goes to the transportation company that needs to be funded. Well, the funding now is moving from USAID to the State Department, but there isn't a team in place in the State Department. So I got one, the Somalia one made it out and found the funding. The Sudan one didn't. There are not enough people to be able to write these contracts. And so those are now stalled. So that means product is sitting in my warehouse that's been paid for, and it's not going to get out to the children who really, really need it in a country like Sudan. We have also shut down the factory. We have slowed down the factory. We've done everything that we can to make our current orders last as long as possible. But every hour that that factory is not working means 415 children per hour will not get the life-saving food in RUTF that they need. This is devastating to watch these lines be operating at a very small percentage of what they should be. This contributes to inefficiency and waste, the exact things that we're trying to reverse. Now, as a manufacturing company, we're obsessed with efficiency. We see where the inefficiencies are. We are supportive of the new administration in terms of helping to identify those and improve the systems. I have sent 3 pages worth of ideas to anyone who will listen, and I'm waiting for a response to see how we can start working together to implement some of these ideas that have never been listened to before. We need to move from the destroyer mode into the rebuilding mode as quickly as possible. Children cannot wait.
To that point, I mean, what do you think resonates for policymakers? And this is from both y'all's lenses. What do you think they need to hear right now?
This has always been a bipartisan issue. The farmers in the United States the majority are in red states. And we want to support these farmers still. They're an important part of Title II and other parts of emergency food assistance programs. And if there is ever a time to unite behind something, this issue of food insecurity and emergency food assistance is something that we've always all agreed on. But now is the time for the members of Congress, the White House, the State Department to demand that we do not abandon children right now. And if we do not speak up and speak out, this will quickly slip away and not become a part of this value system that we've had as Americans for, since the 1950s.
Chris, what do you think policymakers need to hear?
I think first and foremost that really we need to realize that what we have is a systems issue globally. Malnutrition doesn't exist in a vacuum. It exists because there are these other things, these other compounding things that are happening. And so we both need to address the immediate kind of the acute crisis, and we need to address the bigger system issue, right? And so this is where I think, if we want to talk about things like that let's just be real. When hunger rises, you see more instability, you see more mass migration, you see long-term dependencies that are created. And so we need, to Navyn's point, when producers like Edesia are not able to make and ship that product, There are places in the world that are not like Haiti, that don't have a local producer, that don't even have a regional producer. And those children and those people are suffering. And that is actually compounding the very issues that I think we all want to address, that we all feel passionately shouldn't exist in the world. So those children need help now, yesterday. Aid isn't charity, it's a strategic decision. That if you want to address these root cause issues, you need to be smart about it. You need to be able to address the acute crises at play, but then you do need to make those strategic choices about how you're going to address the long term. And for me, that's like, it's strategic to say that localization works, that integration always beats isolation, that when you can support localization, that you're providing jobs, you're strengthening agriculture, you're helping to improve health outcomes. And it's this sort of nexus approach, this kind of integrated approach that actually means you're going to spend less dollars in times of crisis. And I think with local actors, we need to acknowledge that they're not just like the beneficiaries of our goodwill. We need to be building that capacity. We need to invite them to have a seat at the table. They need to be a part of the conversations and a part of the decision making. So I would say that this is, like Navyn pointed out, this is not just a moral issue. This isn't just the right thing to do. It's actually a strategic issue. And every day that we're not addressing those issues is strategically to our disadvantage.
And strategically, from the U.S. lens, also to build on what Chris said, these policies do make America stronger, safer, and more prosperous, which are the three things that Secretary Rubio is putting as a central message. We fall very squarely within that initiative, and we are aligned completely there. Edesia and MFK didn't have to change anything about what we do to fit in there, but we have to make sure that these programs stay at the forefront of what success looks like in terms of international humanitarian assistance.
The key takeaway that I took from what both of you all said is that, one, you can't address instability without addressing food security, and malnutrition is part of that. And it's more than just the humanitarian emergency side of that. It's also about building resilience to ensure that our neighbors are prosperous and have the capacity to be able to be successful and vibrant. And I really think that the work that you all are doing is like almost like that beginning stage of that long term goal of capacity building and strength. And it addresses key, those don't address key U.S. priorities. I don't know what else can. I mean, global food security has to remain a key priority, not only in the United States but globally. As we start to wrap up, what are some of your key takeaways that you would want the audience to really walk away with? Like, what are some of the lessons learned that you think is important for not only governments and policymakers to take away, but also the general public, and also how can we be helpful to the work that you're doing?
I think as we look at inefficiencies and bureaucracies and big agencies and things like that, the benefit of Edesia and MFK is we're very nimble. So we can pivot quickly. We can see a problem and we can make change immediately. Because you're a giant agency or a bureaucracy or a giant government, this can no longer be an excuse for you to not be able to pivot as well. We need everybody to move quickly to find better solutions and to become more efficient across the board. I would also say, the one thing that both of us, MFK and Edesia, are the only nonprofits within the Plumpy Field Network. And we need donations now more than ever, both of us, to be able to keep our production lines going, and more importantly, to be able to make sure that the requests that we get from NGOs who do not have the funds to continue their nutrition programs, that's what we need those funds for. And so anyone who can support in that way or spreading the word would be hugely helpful.
Chris?
Yeah, I completely echo Navyn there. smaller organizations with less bureaucracy, like Edesia, MFK, and all the other members in our network, we're able to adjust and adapt faster, more efficiently. We're closer to the sources of the problem, and so we understand what it takes to address them. We're able to see where the needs are. We're able to see how to most efficiently and effectively address them. We're able to see, this is the action that's required right now today, and we don't have to wait a week to get a response. We can make a phone call and it can happen. These joint partnerships are essential. I could go on and on, Eric, about the ways where a smaller organization like ours maybe doesn't have all of the expertise, and we're able to pick up the phone and call someone on Navyn's team and get a response in sometimes a matter of minutes, definitely within a matter of hours. So these sorts of collaborations, this multi-pronged approach to addressing aid and malnutrition is really the smart way going forward. And I would love to see individuals advocate for that. I would love to see policymakers advocate for that. We need to be smarter. We need to build with these ideas in mind. And I think if we do that, we will see a future where less and less crises in aid has to be addressed, and we'll actually start seeing real lasting change.
I really want to thank Navyn and Chris for joining us today. One of the key things that they talked about is how the role that advocacy plays in all of this. And these are two organizations that not only are advocating as it relates specifically to ready-to-use therapeutic foods, RUTF, but also the big picture around what it would take to really solve the problem of severe malnutrition. So I want to thank you both as leaders in this community. Real quick, if folks are interested in supporting your organizations directly, where can they go?
EdesiaNutrition.org.
mfkhaiti.org, or you can find us on any of your favorite socials.
Thank you. And again, thank you all for joining us. And if you're interested in learning more about how you can work with us, the Alliance to End Hunger, to advocate on the big picture policy issues that both our guests were talking about today, feel free to go to alliancetoendhunger.org. And thank you for joining Voices to End Hunger.
A huge thanks to Navyn Salem of Edesia Nutrition, Chris Greene of Meds and Food for Kids, and Alliance to End Hunger President Eric Mitchell. Our producer is Nate McGrath, and I'm Minerva Delgado. Send any questions, comments, or feedback to podcast@alliancetoendhunger.org. And don't forget to subscribe to your favorite podcast streaming service. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of Voices to End Hunger. Have a great week.